When my asthmatic mom couldn't breathe at the neighborhood barbecue, our power-hungry HOA president stole her inhaler as punishment for breaking petty rules. How was she supposed to know my sweet, struggling mother was actually an undercover FBI agent investigating their corrupt organization? The red and blue lights flashed through our curtains as I watched the ambulance pull away with Mom inside, all because Eleanor Hoffman couldn't mind her own business about our garden gnome. I stood in our driveway, shaking partly from anger, partly from fear. 10 hours earlier, everything had been normal. I remember the exact moment Eleanor first targeted us. We had just finished unpacking boxes in our new home in Pinecrest Gardens when a sharp knock interrupted our pizza dinner there. She stood in her spotless white pantsuit, a black notebook clutched in her manicured hands. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, without smiling. "Your mailbox is non-regulation 2 shades darker than permitted. Fix it by Friday." Mom politely invited her in for pizza. Eleanor looked at the box like it might bite her. "I prefer to keep our interactions professional," she replied. "I'm the HOA president. You'll find all rules in the welcome packet." There are many. That was 3 months ago. Since then, she'd written us up for trash cans visible from the street. They weren't Christmas lights left up too long. It was January 2nd, a bird feeder that attracted pests. Mom's rose bushes being half an inch too tall, my car leaking oil on the driveway. It didn't. Mom, who taught kindergarten for 30 years before retiring last spring, tried to make peace. She baked cookies for Eleanor, invited her to tea, even offered to help with community projects. Eleanor responded by increasing her inspections of our property. What really bothered Eleanor was Raymond, the garden gnome Dad gave Mom on their last anniversary. Before his heart attack, he sat happily by our front steps, fishing pole in hand. "It cheapens the aesthetic of Pinecrest Gardens," Eleanor declared during her 4th visit in 2 weeks. "The rules allow for tasteful lawn ornaments," Mom replied, showing the page in the HOA handbook. "Raymond stays." I noticed Mom's hand trembling as she spoke. The stress was getting to her. Asthma at 62, the eye condition that had been mild for years, was getting worse since Dad died. Yesterday marked the annual Pinecrest Garden Summer Barbecue. Eleanor had announced a special meeting about community standards beforehand. When we arrived at the clubhouse, I immediately felt uneasy. Too many people glanced at us and then quickly looked away. "Glad you could join us," Eleanor said into the microphone as we found seats. "I was just discussing property values and how certain residents seem determined to lower them." She clicked to a PowerPoint slide showing our house, with Raymond circled in angry red. "This is exactly the kind of tackiness that drives away quality buyers," she announced. Mom stood up. "Eleanor, this isn't appropriate for a community event. The bylaws clearly state." "The bylaws state I maintain community standards," Eleanor interrupted. "And your attitude has been noted repeatedly." Several neighbors looked uncomfortable. Few nodded in agreement with Mom. "That gnome was a gift from my late husband," Mom explained, her voice catching. I could hear the "we" starting in her chest. "The first sign of an attack. Your personal attachments aren't our concern," Eleanor snapped. "Remove it or face fines." Mom's breathing grew labored. She reached into her purse for her asthma puffer as she tried to speak. "You're exceeding your authority, and you're being disruptive." Eleanor marched over and snatched the inhaler from Mom's hand. "This behavior is exactly the problem." Shocked gasps came from around the room. Mom tried to grab it back, but Eleanor stepped away. "Return it when you learn some manners," she said coldly. Mom's face paled as she struggled for air. I jumped up, yelling for Eleanor to give it back. 2 of Eleanor's friends, board members who always voted her way, stood blocking my path. "She needs that to breathe," I shouted. "She needs to respect authority," Eleanor replied, dropping Mom's puffer into her designer handbag. Meeting adjourned as people began filing out, some concerned, others deliberately looking away. Mom collapsed. I pushed past Eleanor's friends and caught Mom before she hit the floor. "Someone called 911, I screamed as Mom's lips began turning blue. "Your mother suffered a severe asthma attack," Dr. Patel explained as we sat in the hospital consultation room. "If you hadn't gotten her here so quickly," I couldn't finish that thought. The image of Mom gasping for breath as Eleanor walked away with her inhaler played on repeat in my mind. "Can I see her?" I asked. Dr. Patel nodded. "She stabilized, but we're keeping her overnight." Check asking for her phone. I found Mom looking surprisingly alert in her hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and oxygen. Her first words weren't what I expected. "Did you bring my secure phone?" "The one in the locked drawer of my nightstand, Mom." "You need to rest. I'm going to call the police about Eleanor." "No police," Mom said firmly. "Not yet. Get my phone first." I drove home in a day's rain, pounding on the windshield, matching my thundering heartbeat. A certified letter from the HOA was taped to our door in the rain, which was absolutely against their own rules about proper mail delivery. Inside, the letter demanded a $500 fine for disruptive conduct at a community event and threatened legal action if not paid within 7 days. It was signed by Eleanor and stamped with the HOA seal. Unbelievable, I muttered, tossing it on the counter in Mom's room. I found the key exactly where she said, taped inside her copy of Pride and Prejudice. The drawer contained a phone I'd never seen before and a small notebook filled with what looked like financial records and codes. When I returned to the hospital, Mom was sitting up looking better but serious. Lock the door, she said. I did, confused. Mom, what's happening? We need to report Eleanor for sit down, honey. Mom's voice had changed. It was calmer, more authoritative than I'd ever heard. There's something I need to tell you. She took the phone, entered a long passcode, and made a call. Agent Catherine Reynolds reporting, authorization code Lane9 Delta 47. I need to speak with Director Swanson. Yes, it's urgent. I stared at my mother. My kindergarten teacher mother, speaking in a way I'd never heard before. Sir, my cover may be compromised. The subject has escalated to physical endangerment. Yes, she took my inhaler, which contains the tracking device. No, my identity is still secure, but we need to accelerate the timeline. When she hung up, Mom saw my shocked expression inside. I'm not just a retired kindergarten teacher, she said quietly. I've been with the FBI for 35 years, Financial Crimes Division. I laughed nervously. Very funny, Mom. You taught Mrs. Peterson's kids, and half the town I did teach. Yes, that was my cover for the last decade. She reached into her hospital gown and pulled out a chain with a badge I'd never seen. But this is who I really am. That's real. I touched the metal badge, feeling suddenly dizzy. Eleanor Hoffman has been running a massive money laundering operation through the HOA for years, Mom explained, her voice low. I've been tracking transactions across 5 different homeowners associations. That's why we moved here after your father passed. Dad knew, I whispered. Your father was my handler until he retired 5 years ago. We weren't supposed to fall in love, but we did. He stayed active as my support until his heart attack. I felt the room spin. Everything I thought I knew about my family had just been turned upside down. The asthma I began is real, Mom said. But the inhaler Eleanor took contains a specialized recording device that's been documenting her meetings and phone calls whenever I'm near her. She's just made a critical mistake by taking federal property. A soft knock at the door interrupted us. Mom quickly hid her badge and nodded for me to answer. 2 people in business attire stood outside, a tall black woman and a younger man with glasses. Agents Clark and Rodriguez, the woman said quietly, showing me her badge. We need to speak with Agent Reynolds. They entered, closing the door behind them. Catherine, we've been monitoring the situation, Agent Clark said. Director Swanson has authorized immediate action based on the medical threat. Eleanor scheduled an emergency HOA board meeting for tomorrow morning to discuss our ongoing violations, I said. She sent a notice before taking Mom's inhaler. The agents exchanged glances. Perfect timing, Mom said. The quarterly HOA fees were collected last week. If her pattern holds, the money will move tomorrow. After the meeting, we'll have a full team in place. Agent Rodriguez confirmed your hospitalization actually helps our case. It adds assault to the financial crimes charges. What do you need me to do? I asked, still struggling to reconcile my kindergarten teacher mother with this calm federal agent discussing operations. Mom reached for my hand. Go home, act normal, attend the meeting tomorrow, and record everything. We'll have agents nearby, but we need you to be our eyes and ears. Won't Eleanor be suspicious when you're not there? Mom smiled grimly. Oh, I'll be there. Dr. Patel is actually Agent Patel. I'll be discharged in the morning. I drove home in a state of shock, nearly missing the 3 black SUVs parked discreetly along different streets in our neighborhood. At home, the garden gnome Raymond seemed to wink at me in the porch light. I wondered if he too had been part of this elaborate cover story. Sitting on our couch, I pulled out photo albums, seeing my parents' life with new eyes. Dad's government accounting job, Mom's teaching position that always seemed to move districts every few years, the professional conferences they attended separately. Then I noticed something in a family beach photo. Dads watched the same unusual model I'd seen on Agent Rodriguez's wrist. Had I been surrounded by FBI agents my entire life without knowing? Just after midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Operation active at 0900. Be ready. I stared out the window at our quiet suburban street, wondering what would happen when Eleanor Hoffman discovered she hadn't just stolen an inhaler from a sick older woman, she'd stolen federal property from an FBI agent who'd been building a case against her for months. Blood pounded in my ears as Mom gripped my arm outside the community center. Listen carefully, She whispered, I need you to act surprised when I reveal who I am. This operation is bigger than Eleanor's petty power trip inside. Every seat was filled. Neighbors whispered and pointed. As we entered, Eleanor sat at the center table flanked by her loyal board members Stuart and Diana. My mother's inhaler sat in front of her like a prize. Late, as usual. Eleanor smirked, checking her diamond-studded watch. We've called this emergency meeting to address the Reynolds' ongoing violations and disruptive behavior. Mom shuffled forward, shoulders hunched, playing the frail asthmatic perfectly. I bit my lip, amazed at her acting skills. For 8 months, I'd watched her struggle with stairs and carry an oxygen tank for especially bad days, all fake. Before we begin, Eleanor continued, tapping a stack of papers, I want everyone to see the documentation of the Reynolds' 17 violations this year alone. She projected photos onto the wall. Our mailbox, Mom's rose bushes, even our Halloween decorations from last year. As you can see, she gestured dramatically, these people have no respect for our community standards. And yesterday, Miss Reynolds had the audacity to have a medical episode during my speech simply to draw attention away from her violations. Gasps filled the room. Even Eleanor's supporters looked uncomfortable. You stole my medication, Mom wheezed. I could have died. I confiscated a disruptive prop, Eleanor corrected, holding up the inhaler. If you were truly sick, you'd have gone to a hospital, not tried to embarrass me publicly. Mom's hand trembled as she reached into her purse. I steeled myself, knowing what was coming. I did go to the hospital, Mom said, her voice suddenly strong. She pulled out her badge, holding it high. And now I'm placing you under investigation. Eleanor Hoffman. The room exploded in confusion. 2 agents entered from the back door, wearing dark suits and serious expressions. This is Agent Catherine Reynolds, announced the taller agent. She's been leading our investigation into financial irregularities in HOA operations across 3 counties. Eleanor's face contorted with disbelief. This is absurd. She's lying. Mom straightened to her full height. All traces of weakness gone. That inhaler you so proudly displayed contains a recording device that has captured every conversation we've had, including your admission yesterday about using HOA funds for your vacation home in Aspen. You can't record me without my knowledge. That's illegal, Eleanor shrieked. Not when it's part of a federal investigation into money laundering, Mom replied calmly. We have bank records showing over $200,000 in resident fees diverted to personal accounts. We have evidence of falsified financial reports. And now, thanks to your theatrical display of power today, we have you on record admitting to deliberately endangering a federal agent by withholding necessary medical equipment. Eleanor lunged for the inhaler, but one of the agents was faster. This is federal property, ma'am. Stuart and Diana began edging away from Eleanor, but Mom shook her head. Don't bother, your signatures are on the fraudulent documents too. My neighbor Tasha stood up, trembling. They fined me $2,000 when my husband was deployed overseas because our grass grew too long while I was at my mother's funeral. This opened the floodgates. Neighbors called out injustices, excessive fines, arbitrary rules, selective enforcement. Quiet, Eleanor screamed, slamming her fist on the table. This community would fall apart without my leadership. These people are trying to destroy everything we've built. Mom calmly opened a laptop, projecting financial records onto the wall. Residents of Pinecrest Gardens, these are your HOA financial statements for the past 3 years. The highlighted entries show money transferred to shell companies owned by Mrs. Hoffman and her associates. Eleanor knocked over her chair as she stood. You'll regret this. My husband plays golf with Senator Wilson. Senator Wilson is well aware of our investigation, Mom replied. In fact, his office has received numerous complaints about predatory HOA practices. As agents LED, Eleanor, Stewart, and Diana outside, neighbors surrounded us with questions. And thanks, Mom held up her hand for quiet. There's something else you should know, she said gravely. Pinecrest Gardens was just one target. We've uncovered similar schemes in 12 communities across the state. Eleanor's group has been using these residential associations as fronts for MOV money from less legitimate ventures. Tomorrow's newspaper will have the full story. While the room buzzed with shock, I finally found my voice. Why didn't you tell me? I asked Mom as we walked home in the fading light. She squeezed my hand. Because your genuine reaction sold my cover story. I couldn't risk Eleanor suspecting anything. She paused at our driveway, looking at our house with new eyes. Also, I wasn't sure how deep this when I needed to protect you. I stared at this woman I thought I knew, so the asthma real, unfortunately. She sighed. I've had it since childhood. I just exaggerated the symptoms for the assignment. The bureau thought my condition made me the perfect undercover agent who would suspect someone who can barely climb stairs without wheezing. As we reached our door, Mom's phone rang. Her expression darkened. As she listened, we need to go back, she said. You are, urgently. They found something in the community center basement. Flashlights cut through darkness as we hurried back to the community center. Yellow crime scene. Tape already blocked the entrance. Mom flashed her badge at the officer standing guard, and he lifted the tape for us. What did they find? I whispered as we descended narrow stairs I never knew existed. Documents, Mom replied. Turley, lots of them. The basement smelled musty, and in used metal shelves lined concrete walls filled with dusty holiday decorations and broken pool furniture, but agents focused on a section of wall that had been moved aside, revealing a hidden room. Catherine, good timing. A man in a rumpled suit waved us over. Your hunch was right. This goes beyond local corruption. Inside the hidden space, stacks of files reached the ceiling. Computer equipment hummed in one corner, next to what looked like a professional printing setup. Identity theft? Mom asked, pulling on latex gloves. And much more, the man replied, handing her a folder. We found evidence linking Eleanor's group to at least 3 criminal organizations operating across state lines. They've been using HOA fees to launder money, but they've also been creating fake identities using residents' information. My stomach dropped. You mean they've been stealing our identities, our neighbors' identities? Not just stealing them, another agent called from behind a computer. They've been selling packages, new names, credit histories, backgrounds, high-quality stuff that could fool most security checks. Mom opened the folder and gasped. Inside were perfect replicas of passports, driver's licenses, and social security cards, all with photos of people I recognized from our neighborhood, but with different names. They've been using our community as a testing ground, Mom explained, creating fake identity based on real people, then selling them to criminals. That's why Eleanor was so obsessed with taking pictures at every community event. I realized she wasn't documenting violations, she was gathering photos for fake IDs. Mom squeezed my shoulder. And why she hated your garden gnome so much. Your security camera hidden inside it might have captured her late night visits to this basement. I blinked in confusion. Wait, you knew about my gnome camera? Who do you think suggested the brand? Mom winked. I needed extra surveillance, but couldn't install official equipment without blowing my cover. An agent shouted from another corner, we've got digital files, looks like transactions going back 3 years. Mom examined the computer screen, her expression grim. This is bigger than we thought. These payments trace back to shell companies in 7 countries. Is that why the FBI got involved? I asked. This seems way beyond normal HOA issues. Mom nodded. We received tips about unusual financial patterns in several communities. Small HOAs suddenly purchasing expensive security systems, landscaping companies being paid triple market rates, classic money laundering signs. But we never expected to find an identity theft operation outside. More vehicles arrived. Residents gathered on the street, watching in shock as agents carried out box after box of evidence. Tasha appeared at my side. Is it true Eleanor was stealing our information? Before I could answer, a commotion erupted at a police car. Eleanor had somehow slipped her handcuffs and was trying to run. 2 officers quickly recaptured her, but not before she locked eyes with me. You regret this, she hissed. They'll come for all of you when they discover their operation is compromised. Mom stepped forward. Who will come? Eleanor, give us names, and we can protect you. Eleanor's laugh sent chills down my spine. You think I'm the mastermind? I'm just the local manager. There are 50 communities like this one. As they secured Eleanor in the police car, Mom pulled me aside. We need to talk about your safety. This case has expanded significantly back home. Mom made calls while I tried to process everything. Our quiet neighborhood had it been a front for international crime. My mother was a skilled federal agent, and somewhere out there people were very angry that their operation had been exposed. Pack a bag, Mom instructed, hanging up the phone. Just essentials for a few days. We're leaving. But what about our house? Our neighbors' protection teams are being assigned to every household, she explained, already filling her own suitcase. But you and I need to go to a secure location. Eleanor's bosses will figure out very quickly that I'm the agent who infiltrated their operation. I grabbed photo albums and my laptop. Where are we going? Witness protection temporarily. She handed me a new phone. This is secure. Your old one stays here. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Mom drew a gun I never knew she had and approached cautiously through the peephole. She relaxed slightly, "It's Agent Michaels," she called to me, opening the door. The tall agent from earlier entered quickly. "We need to move now. We've intercepted communications. They know who you are, Catherine." Within minutes, we were in an unmarked car heading away from the only neighborhood I'd known for the past year. As street lights flashed by, Mom squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry I had to lie to you," she said softly. "This assignment was supposed to be simple: gather evidence of financial crimes, build a case against local corruption." "Will we ever come back?" I asked, watching our house disappear around a corner. "Yes," she promised. "But first we need to help dismantle this entire network." 6 months later, we stood in our driveway again. The house looked exactly as we'd left it, though the garden had grown wild. New security cameras watched the street, less discreetly hidden than my gnome had been. The trial had made national headlines. FBI uncovers massive criminal network operating through homeowners associations. Eleanor and her associates received lengthy sentences. Her mysterious bosses were still being hunted, but their operation had been crippled. Our neighbors welcomed us back with a block party. The newly elected HOA board, led by Tasha, had one simple rule: be kind. "What will you do now?" Tasha asked Mom as we enjoyed hamburgers in the same park where everything had started. "Actually retire." Mom laughed, patting her real inhaler. "Miasma, not pretend, and chasing criminals is a young agent game." I smiled, watching her chat with neighbors who now looked at her with respect rather than pity. My mother had taught me the most important lesson: never judge someone by appearances. As for the garden gnome, with its hidden camera, we gave it a place of honor by our front door, a reminder that sometimes the smallest things provide the greatest protection.